But yeah, I think we got most of the stakeholders. So this is just to lay the foundation a little bit. This is a core dev meeting, just a term I came up with because I want the people who are working on the core functionality of Commune itself, whoever those people may be. That's what I want input from and what I want this meeting to intend or be focused on so that we can communicate together on what we're working on so we're not duplicating effort, but also so that we have a kind of a unified vision and movement forward. That's the intention of this meeting, is just to get us all on the same page. And I wanted to bring up some concerns I have so that we can squash them and then move forward and be able to mature this growing community so that we can develop better and develop more in the near future. So that was kind of not the antithesis, the inception of this meeting and why I put it together. So I know that Hans's group has done a lot of amazing work on ComX, and so there's definitely some synergy there, and they've been working really hard on the testnet and also the Yuma consensus and looking and getting that update out and working on that. So that was one of the reasons why I wanted to bring them on board for sure, because they're doing some great work there. Anyway, so I wanted to just kind of open it up for a little bit, and then I have a couple things to go over. But that was the reason for bringing this together. And I wanted it to be public so that the entire community knows what we're talking about, concerns we have, and things that we're trying to fix, and things that we're trying to do and implement, and things that are coming. Some things even this week became news to me. So I think it would probably be news to most people. So that's one of the reasons why I'm doing this. But the point of this meeting is to focus on core commune development. We're not taking module questions or anything like that. That's a different thing entirely. So, Fam, did you have any thoughts or anything you wanted to add to that about just anything related to this?
Yeah. Yeah, I think this is a good time to like share like good practices and like what to expect for the future. Because I know a lot of people have been surprised by the changes. Like, as long as like we're obviously striving for like a fair system, we don't want people to exploit it. Otherwise, it hurts the system. So yeah, like it's just kind of like a good way to set the standards for the future.
No, that makes sense. We want to make sure that the core functionality is something that works for the entire community and works towards a better system together. So I think the best way to do that is to have these kind of open discussions so that people know what we're thinking, what we're trying to do, and how we're trying to solve problems as they arise. Because it's inevitable that there will be bumps in the road, and so that we're explaining how we're trying to get past those bumps. So to that
Yeah.
end, I wanted to start with something I've been pinging you about, and that's the vision statement. I want to know what, in a concise way, is the vision of Commune. I've seen a bunch of different things out there, but I kind of want to know, what is the group's vision? What is the community's vision? What are we trying to accomplish as a group? And then I'm going to put that in here in this, like I said, a template for
Yes.
how to do little roadmaps. And I wanted to start with a vision statement.
Yeah. So the vision is for people to create whatever they want and add it to the networks, and that's basically it. And for them to use it. And once you have that framework of registering something, and then when you register it, people can interact with it on a web application, then that's like the I think everything else will follow through or fall. So I think that's the core that I want to
So that
finish. Yeah.
I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around that. What you said is you want something where anyone can write anything and it becomes a module, if I'm distilling what you're saying. Can you
Yeah.
more succinctly say that? Because we have, what I'd like to get out of this is making milestones for the core dev group.
Sure. Let
So the
me let
vision,
me rephrase.
go
Yeah,
for
let
it.
me rephrase then.
Please do
Yeah.
so.
Then basically we want to have like we have a lot of projects in parallel, and so each project is a module. Inevitably, what the user experience will be that like anyone like it'll be there's a bunch of cards on a screen, each card being a module, and then you click on it and you get to use it. That's the experience. So all those projects are meant to be modules for people to use. And so I think the goal is to essentially see where each project's at and what needs to be done for an MVP for each of those projects. So we need to basically have an Excel sheet, or I think we have a Asana actually. I think I invited you to it.
You
But if not, I
did.
can invite you. Yeah. So
Um,
I'm not sure we could use that maybe more frequently.
that would be good. It seemed rather stale, so I wanted to look at something that I wanted to look at that a little closer, but it didn't seem like it was being actively updated. So one of the things, what you're talking about is you want to have because that's like an explanation, not necessarily a vision. So if I can understand what you're saying, the vision is to create a platform that people can write modules and then a place to showcase those modules, and the modules are providing some sort of value to the blockchain. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah.
Okay, so I think that makes sense. And then out of that vision of what the commune community and blockchain is supposed to do, then what I want to do as the core dev team is break up milestones that we can do to achieve that vision and purpose. So if the purpose is to marketplace and showcase modules that are being independently written, great, and then we'll break that up. So let me get this down, because this is something that I've wanted for a couple of weeks now, and I think this would be really helpful to get us on point, because sometimes I myself definitely get sidetracked with other projects and other modules and et cetera, and I might be missing the mark. But having this as the unified goal, I think would really help. Now, this is the vision statement for commune proper, right? So to create a platform for independent modules to be not hosted, but showcased and accessible for the community at large to be able to consume. I don't love this template. All right, now that I have this out of the way, that note, we can just do that. Let's see if I can grab this thing. Nope. Yep. There we go. Something like that. All right, cool. Does that sound in line with what you're talking about?
Yes.
Okay, great. So now we want to break those up into goals. What are some
Mhm.
ways to get oh, you probably want something, we want a little bit more, because we want a platform, but I'm imagining it's more than that, because we also need to provide incentive mechanisms. So we should
Mhm.
probably
Yep.
sprinkle incentive mechanism into the vision statement to create a platform and independent modules to be showcased and accessible to community at large, while incentivizing new and better modules. Oops. Incentivizing. It's not really a word, but we'll go with it. Incentivizing. Oops. Whatever. Oh, that is a word. Go for it. All right, cool. I think that makes sense. Is there anything else that you want in there? Because I think that's also a core piece of this. It's not just making a platform. We also want to make it so that people are continuously making a better community. So that's a big piece of what we're working on. Okay, I like it. Was there anything that you would edit there, or any changes you want to see?
No, I think that's good for now.
Okay, good. Hans,
Yeah, I think we
go ahead.
should work on the project base. Yeah, and see what the projects are, and then kind of just track the progress of each project that's going on right now.
Right. So we had that meeting yesterday that was all about projects and how the bounties work and how the
Mhm.
projects get funded and all that. So that was the
Yep.
point of that meeting. This meeting is more of the core dev, but I do think that that does dovetail into this somewhat nicely,
Sure.
because we already talked about the how. This is more of the what. It's kind of the cart before the horse, I realize, because we should really have the what and then the how out of that. But it was such a thing that needed addressing more with more immediacy. So that's why I put that as fast as possible, so that we could address the community, because there's been a lot of confusion there. So that's why I did that before this one, because it needed to happen, because there's a lot of people wondering what's going on, and we were able to come up with some deliverables there. So one of the ways to facilitate this, I think, is documentation. And I had a conversation with Kelvin yesterday about documentation, and I wanted to talk to the group at large. I hope he's available for this meeting, and if he's not, I might table that documentation part, because he's done a lot of really good work with the website. But there's a couple things that I need to ask about documentation, because there's multiple groups working on it. And anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. I want to break things out into goals, and one of the goals needs to be documentation. How do we want to handle documentation? So I'm going to make that a goal. We want to achieve, let's see, provide good and provide quality and thorough documentation for the commune-ai community. Because heretofore that has not happened, and luckily there's been an update, but I think we need some more. All right, that's one thing that needs to happen. What are some other just big overarching goals that we can break down that you want to see? Maybe something regarding the incentives.
Yes, I want to have more usage of subnets, and basically having a website that socially validates modules, essentially. So like, yeah, basically that's the goal.
Incentivize new and better modules. Social. What did you say? You said socially what? Social website?
Yeah, like just like a website to validate. Which is what we're building kind of already, as one of our front end projects.
Which one? I'm not sure what you're talking about.
Yeah, so there's a few initiatives. There's different. There's obviously ComStats, and then there's the AGI Commons. People are going to do their own version of it with like the subnet zero validator. It's going to be like using Discord essentially to validate. There's that, and yeah, that's kind of and I think that those are the current like three initiatives.
So you want? It sounds like you're in favor of multiple websites, but you mentioned ComStats. So ComStats allows for staking to different modules and validators. You want more of those?
Well, okay. Essentially, like I do want a native commune website.
Okay.
That allows you to manage modules through your front end, through your web browser.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the goal. Is if you can manage everything through your web browser without you having to go on a computer.
Right, without having to do C commands.
Yeah.
Okay. That makes sense.
So the end game is to have like an actual platform for like a full on like where you can just pull up the module, use the module, and then like all in one ecosystem.
Well, yeah, like a web app that essentially allows you to essentially serve a module, manage the running modules, and then also the infrastructure on which they run. So yeah, like how, like if I'm running a server, then like, and if it needs a GPU, then I need to go to a Kosh network, or like
that makes sense.
any GPU marketplace.
Yeah. So okay, that makes sense. That makes a lot more sense in terms of the module system. Like this is the first I've heard about this sort of like end goal. And then that main, sorry, I'm just so that makes sense. So then we should make that as the focal point of what maybe the core dev team starts working on to make sure that we have that platform to provide people with the modules, and then the modules will make a lot more sense to people, I think.
Yeah, we actually have a front end for that manager, but we need to connect it with and we have a schema for the API. We just need to complete the backend work. That's the limiting. Yeah, so that's something we could put down as a bounty that we need help with.
Yeah, well, and this is exactly why I put this meeting together, is that different groups didn't know about this, and this is now coming to light in a good way and in a healthy way. We can build on this, right? Because I think some people were independently working on the same idea. So I think that this is excellent. This is exactly why I wanted to pull this together, is to know what the plan is, to make the plan, and then because what's cool about this too is it gives people reason to make more modules, right? Because then they'll understand how they'll get used, and then they can, you know, if there's a native website, maybe they'll get staked to on ComStance and on the native website. Like, I think that's all great. So that's excellent. So when you say that, though, I'm imagining it's not going to happen in one go. So what we're going to do is we're going to have to break that down into more sub tasks. So when you say the native website, you talked about GPU renting on Akash. That's like
I just use that as an example. I essentially you would need an access point to any SSH computer where you only have access to that compute.
what does that have to do with the native website? I'm missing something.
Because yes, it's because, well, essentially, like if I'm running a model on my computer, sure I can run it on my laptop, but like, what if I want to use a very large model? Like, a lot of things are going to be remote, and so like they can essentially exist on the browser. Like, I don't need to like separate. Like, I can essentially do all of my VS code in, like, yeah, like I can code in the browser. I can do everything in the browser. I don't have to like do the like switch between windows and stuff. Like the goal is to do coding and to like work with Commune without having to switch any windows. That's the goal. So
what do you mean coding? You said coding, but I think you mean you want the end. So who's the end user? I'm imagining it's like
it's both developers
non-coding.
and non-developers.
Okay, so do you want
Yeah.
them to interface with this website with like point and click that they can use the modules?
Yes.
That was my understanding. But now you're talking about coding, which is possible if we expose an API, which I think is a great idea. Is that also what you're talking about?
Yes. That's like, this is all very possible.
Oh yes, absolutely.
Yeah, it's
Fast
we just
API
have to
for
do
the
the
win.
work. Yeah.
Yeah, fast API for
Yeah.
the win. We can do this. It's not rocket science. The problem is that we have everybody with good ideas go, and some of it is the same ideas multiple times over, and then everything is stuck at 99%. So that's why I want to have this, so that we can get this done and then assigned, or at least know who's working on what, and so that we don't get duplicate effort. That's a great idea.
Yeah.
I love the native website idea. So when you say the native website idea, this is interesting because this goes into, well, I'm assuming you mean commune-ai.org, right?
Yeah, it could be any website. It doesn't matter. Like the websites will figure themselves out. This is just an application. Well, yeah, like you're gonna have multiple websites. This is like a new internet. Like, you're gonna have multiple websites. It's not gonna just be one website. Like we want to interface with everything on Commune, obviously, but with other protocols as well. Like, that's the goal of, that's the main vision of at least the website I want to build. And that is also the final like user experience that we need to.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. So you're saying
like
you want a new
100 to 1,000
internet, right? I'm going to take a page out of DNS, right? Everybody knows DNS, but everyone also knows that there's a system for the central core DNS servers on the internet, right? But that's what's the missing piece to this. That's what I'm trying to figure out, is like, let's say, because if you have random websites that are made, how does anyone know where they all are? Where's that central list?
It's essentially the blockchain. The blockchain is essentially storing the name of the server and where the server is. That server could be a URL, a website URL.
So you
It could
want
be
people.
it could
so
be
you
a
want,
module.
okay.
It could be a module, and there's a function. You can have a function on that module that calls
the
like
blockchain.
you know. Sure, no, it doesn't call the blockchain. No.
Okay.
It all the blockchain does. There's no interacting on the blockchain other than the most important thing is the name, the address, and the key associated with that module. Those are the three important things. In fact, you probably don't even need the name. You can just use the address of where that server is and the key. So what's the public key? Those are the two things that these things are referencing. And so just like without any voting system, without any like tokenomics, just that, you just run that, like that's a utility because it's literally a DNS internet that doesn't require people to like register, like go through 1,000 different steps just to get a fucking website up.
Yeah, that makes
points.
sense. So today, can somebody without coding experience do that?
No, and that's the goal. You want to make it simpler, and there's a path towards that.
What's the path?
And I guess
Let's do it.
yeah, the
right
path.
now.
Yeah. So essentially, each module has to be a card, and then when you click on that module, it expands. We've already built the front end for this.
Right. It's another website though.
Yes.
And is that the point?
No. It's not. It's not our website. There has to be a default page. The default page of that module shows the code of that module, the schema. Like the schema, like module is a set of functions. So like you want to be able to call all of the functions of that module on your web browser because it's HTTP server. You can call any function and it will be, it will be compatible with your web browser.
Right, but okay, so I get that, but who's going, so you said it already exists, right? I'm assuming you're making a reference to ComHub, right? Is that what you're referencing, or you're referencing just the code itself that is able to do this? Because these are two different things.
The code itself, yeah, ComHub does this, but it's an early stage, and so that's actually a bit more someone else's project. I'm actually working on something that does use components of ComHub, but it's like basically mixing a bit of ComStats with ComHub with like other things. It's kind of like my own thing. I'm having someone else work on it. I'm telling them how to do it, how I would do it.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
You're dictating it. That's totally fine.
Yeah.
But now we're going to have two different native websites, or you'd have this thing you're making is the native website. Then what happens to ComHub?
Well, it's going to be just like these all are going to kind of like somewhat compete with each other. It's not like someone builds ComHub and they're the ones building it, right? It's like this is something that I wanted to build, and I think is a good thing for me to get into the front end experience to have a better, like to help design the whole system as a better user experience. That's the goal. But ComHub is pretty stale right now. I think it's rather stale. We need to update it more frequently, and I'm just the person doing it isn't. I don't think too available. So and it's not entirely what I want. So like I'm gonna move forward with like the way I'm doing it.
Okay, fair enough. So where are you going to put this? Are you going to put it on commune-ai.org, or is it going to be another website?
We'll decide that. Right now, that's not a big priority for me. Like, I'm just gonna I'm not gonna register as a name. I'm like right now I'm just the functionality. Worst case we just rent out another domain name as a temporary solution. But yeah, my core, like I'm gonna let the people that are managing the commune-ai website, like I'm gonna let them manage it. I'm gonna let them do that. I'm gonna let them build out that.
Who's they?
And then the AGI commies.
Because there's another group that's making front ends for documentation that have pinged me, and
yes,
they're talking about that they've gotten direction from you. So I'm just a little confused.
Yes,
like,
that's a different day. Yes, so that's a different person. They're just doing documentation. We can easily merge that into either branch.
So but this really nicely goes to where I'm going with this. Like, I understand the need and the desire for like ultimate freedom and ultimate decentralization, but let's just take, for example, this marketplace idea that you have, right? Which is the vision for Commune, right? To create a platform of independent modules showcased and accessible for the community at large, right? Great idea. What I worry about is, well, which marketplace do they use? And also, then after, and if, let's say if it's another website, where do I tell people to go for the source of truth? Where is the
Yeah,
best
no,
place for information?
it's okay. So this is the experience. The goal is to directly point the user. When you click on that square,
Mhm.
it directly points to the application. There's no bullshit in between. That to me, you can't really get any better than that.
Yeah, that sounds great. I think that should be like official and like the
Yeah,
de facto place, because I don't
yeah.
know if having multiple marketplaces makes sense. If you want to do it,
No,
we can
no. Well,
facilitate that.
you're gonna have sub markets, but it's like this is trying to connect all markets, and so in this specific case, we're trying to connect all experiences.
Right. I'm just thinking of the
Um,
user experience, right? They need a
yeah,
like when they first get
that is the user
introduced to
experience.
Commune, they need to have this platform like that they can go to and boom, this is all the relevant information
Yeah,
I need to
yeah,
get
no,
started.
no. Like we need to make it free and open source and completely open. When the user goes to commune-ai dot like whatever the website is, the first thing they see is maybe a search bar and then a bunch of squares, and each square being something. There should not
Yeah.
be anything else.
No, I get that. You're defining a marketplace. What concerns me is how do they find that marketplace?
I don't think that matters right now. I think that what matters is the design.
You
Like
you
I
don't think it
like
matters how people find the website that has the marketplace?
not when I'm building it, because if I don't build a marketplace, then the question of distribution, like that's a question of distribution. I think is important, but it's not a priority during the phase of design.
Fair enough.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
So you're not concerned with where you're going to put it. You're concerned with how you're building it. Okay, we'll make goals for that. We'll
At
add
least
that
right,
as a
yeah, like right now, like, and then when it's finished, then we focus on distribution. But yeah, like maybe we can think of distribution while we build it.
when you say distribution, I think you mean deployment, right? Where it's going to be deployed. Because you're not.
Okay, sorry,
Is that
you
fair?
mean yeah, it's going to be running on a Linux server, so it's going to be opened on like an open port, um, and on like a Linux server, and it might, yeah, it's just going to run that way.
Yeah,
It's going to
I'm
like
all over that. I've done that at
that's all right.
AWS, GCP, all over the place. Like I
But
get that.
we can link it to the website. Like we can link it on DNS, doesn't matter.
Okay, so so as a taking a step back, putting the marketplace thing to the side for a second.
I'm more.
Sorry, I
More
can't hear you. I think you're
that's
getting
not
super quiet
experience.
or something.
Like
Or,
more. I'm more into like I'm thinking about more like the experience because I feel like that's kind of like a very important thing,
the
given that
experience.
AI is so powerful. Like you want to kind of think of the
Sorry,
experience.
I can't hear you. Can you get? I don't know what's going on, but you're cutting in and out or getting very quiet. I don't know what's going on with interference or something.
Yeah. But yeah, we could continue with I guess so. That's essentially the marketplace is essentially the overarching thing, and so all the projects that we're building are essentially they could be single applications, so it could be like a single chat interface, or they could also be marketplaces. Um, but
Love that. That's great.
I
So
guess, and then you
can you
could be like,
hear us?
okay, well, what if you have a marketplace as well? The good thing about a modular system is that if you have a marketplace of marketplaces, you can just merge them, and then maybe like tag where the marketplace came from. So like everything's composable in the top.
Are you able to hear us?
Does that make
Because
sense?
you've been cutting in and out, and it's really hard to understand. Are you able to hear me?
Oh,
Hello?
oh yeah,
Can you hear me?
yeah, I can
Yeah.
hear you. I can
Yeah,
hear you. I can hear you.
you're cutting in and out. I've been trying to say, can you hear me for like a minute now? Anyway, it doesn't matter.
Oh,
So
weird. Yeah, no.
okay. So I get what you're talking about, the user experience and the marketplace and maybe marketplace of marketplaces. That all makes sense. So let's take a step back. And what is the vision for the main website? Documentation? Is it linking to these other modules or this other marketplace website? What's going on there? What is
Yes,
the
there's
thought there?
documentation linking to the modules, voting for modules, or sorry, staking on modules, um, and also managing your own modules when you deploy them. Like so, like if I wanted to
like basically deploy a validator. I want to do that ideally, but that's obviously the last step. Before that, like I want to essentially have the staking finished, and also but that's basically, you know, mainly what ComStats does. And I actually kind of, I should maybe help out with ComStats um like while building this as well. Um but yeah, like I, I think maybe like the focus should just be like deployment. Like how do you deploy a module remotely from your laptop, or like, because if you can do that, then you can essentially do it from your browser. But yeah, sorry, it's, I guess I'll have to define that a bit more.
Yeah, I think so, and I think those would be good goals here. Because what I'm worried about is if you're going to make this new native website, and at the same time, perhaps ComHub is working in the background on their website and their marketplace. Maybe if they knew this, they wouldn't put their effort in there, right? Because it wouldn't make sense for them to do that if they know that you're going to make a new one. So that's
Yeah,
why I
yeah.
want. I'm
Well,
glad that we're having this conversation so that they can become
yeah,
aware of that.
yeah,
So the
yeah,
other
yeah,
thing is
yeah.
documentation. You mentioned that. This is actually a big thing. I feel really bad for one of the commune-ai guys because he made a new repo that the main website is based off of. Like it builds from there, which is great. It's
Yeah.
fantastic. But what worries me is we have markdown in the main commune repo that has not in any way tied to the website that's generated from this other repo. And so I'm a little concerned about documentation, and that we'll have multiple silos of documentation, and it's up to the developer to be aware of that and then commit multiple copies of documentation to multiple repos. And
Mhm.
realistically, I know you're not doing that, so I don't think anyone is going to do that. So I'm really concerned about that. But I feel bad because I know he put a lot of effort into the commune's latest iteration, the website's latest iteration. And if you're making a new website that's, well, we'll put that
We're,
aside.
yeah, we're just gonna merge. Like, we don't want to reinvent the wheel. We
But that's
want to
happening.
essentially. I understand that, but
Okay.
that's like that's inevitable. Like, I think, like, obviously we want to minimize that, but like, you know, it's okay if you have slightly different iterations, as long as you can easily copy, like, and like also with like consensually like copy people's work and build and improve it. Like, I don't mind if there's three separate commune like ways to use commune, because each of those ways are might be slightly different, and so obviously it makes sense to have a more unifying theory. But it's like, I'm not gonna like, I'm not gonna try to impose certain views onto like how you'd use it. So like if I think, oh, maybe I should add this feature, I should definitely have the liberty of, like, you know, creating a branch of something and like
Uh-huh.
getting that feature and then see if it improves others. So I'm not trying to compete so much as I'm trying to like kind of just navigate the space of how to use these these systems.
I guess I'm just a little confused because you're saying you don't want to compete, but you're making something that's effectively the same as ComHub.
But this is not about competing. This is about getting to the results as fast as possible. So if I don't see ComHub doing it
Then
in
you're
the
going to do
short
it.
term, then I'm gonna just initiate it. Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. That makes
Yeah,
sense.
but yeah, that's like, yeah, because I know that the person is a bit busy. And people sometimes they're more busy than usual, and like, and so yeah, like if like, I guess the goal should be, there should be like relatively periodic checkups. If you're staking on someone and if they're building something, and if they just stop building, then you should probably just unstake.
If I may, on one hand, I agree that just sort of on theme, on principle, people should be kind of generally free to do what they want. On the other hand, I think documentation doesn't work unless there is one solid source of truth for documentation specifically. So my thought would be, we should probably follow like software development best practices as a core team to get the one source of truth documentation done in a very like formal kind of systematized way. And then from there, if people want to add other features or kind of do documentation a little differently, we can just let everybody freestyle from there. But my thought would be like like getting something clearly defined that is like helpful and complete for people to start riffing on is.
Yep. No, I agree. I think that's a good idea. We should definitely strive for that.
Let me take a look here. So I wanted, I get your point there about. Is again, it's kind of the topic of ultimate freedom. But I'd like to get on the same page about documentation. I don't know if this meeting we're going to be able to do that, but especially since the person who made the new documentation and the new website's not here today, as far as I'm aware. But I think I do think that there's needs to be more conversations on that, because yeah, personally, I come from a background of single source of truth, and then you can disseminate from that. But the problem is if like this guy's writing documentation over here, that guy's writing documentation over there, then we get different sets of documentation, and it gets very confusing very fast. So I definitely want to have an idea where we kind of centralize at least the documentation, because I think that will decrease the barrier for people developing on it. So my thought was to use the main commune repos markdown and convert that into the website, so that people very easily, if you're adding to commune, boom, you just make your basic markdown and it shows up on the website automatically. But in talking to the developer of the existing commune website, it doesn't work that way unless you make a pull request to pull in your markdown into this other repo. And I don't think anyone knew that until I mentioned that in this meeting. So that's kind
Yeah,
of
I honestly, I told him to that was a very clunky way. Like, I don't like these forms. I honestly think we should just have a simple, like, it's like, if we can, this takes like 10 minutes to do. Just have like a simple like web page that has people like submit. Like, I think we should maybe create web tools that could help manage. If we're giving out money, then, or if we're paying people, then they're most definitely going to use the system for payment. And so like having a system, because I feel like Discord is a bit limiting. Having a system where we can like manage tasks and pay them out and have other people participate in that system as well is ideal, because we don't want to just be the project manager. I don't want to like be just like we're trying to bootstrap this. So this is essentially the seeding of something that should be self-rolling and autonomous. Yeah.
right. And in the interim, I'm trying to make this organized enough that we can get things done. So right now, as it's very apparent, and you were well aware, that that technology doesn't exist yet, in the sense of it's not implemented. And until it does, we have to have something to get people taken care of and get projects done in the interim. I agree with you. I think it's a great idea, but it's not done yet. So for now, we got to come up with something else. So I agree, the Discord is not perfect, but if we want something very free, it's kind of that happy middle ground until we have something better. And I think this core meeting would be great for that kind of topics. Since nothing is going to happen in the short term, I think we could add it as a goal, but I don't know if that's something we want to spend too many cycles on here right now. But feel free to disagree with me on that. I would welcome your input on that. I want to know what your thoughts are on that.
No, I think that's fine.
So let's add it. Then let's add a goal
yeah.
for that. We'll add in here that we want to have. What do you want to call it? You want to call it voting, or do you want to call it DAO? What do you want to call it? Decentralized, maybe, project management?
There are.
Yeah. Sorry.
Oh yeah, I just want to say, like, there are and it might be good to kind of figure, as we're doing project management, figure out what we need to build ourselves, what we have to roll a custom version of, and what already exists that we can just grab something. There's like self-hostable project management software. There's existing Web3 bounty software. Like, there are systems that are built to solve these problems in a general sense that we could probably leverage to make things easier for ourselves.
That sounds great. So what we'll do is we'll investigate that, I think, later. But what meaning I'll add that to the roadmap, and then what we'll do is that'll be a milestone that we can get people to do. I think that would be a great idea. That is a good point. I don't want to reinvent the wheel, just like Sam said. We don't want to reinvent the wheel. But if we can make a better one, then there's something to that. No, I think that makes a lot of sense. All right, it sounds like what we need to do is table documentation right now, and we'll get to that later. The other thing I wanted to talk about, really the core of this meeting, is development. So something that came out this week is you were talking about a Uniswap thing that you wanted to add to the incentive mechanisms. Do you mind kind of telling us where you're at with that, what you're thinking? I think you said you're going
Yeah.
to release a black paper, if I remember correctly, on Friday.
Yeah,
Is
on
that what's
Friday,
going
yeah.
on?
Yeah. So basically, when I like, you want to incentivize people to stake on a variety of things. Unfortunately, that's hard for people to do because that's like not, for us to manage multiple things is harder than managing fewer things. So we need to incentivize people to stake on things before other people stake on them. It sounds really shitty, but that's basically how these protocols work. That's how the whole financial system works, is to basically put money on something before someone else does. So, and funny enough, that could be like Ponzi-nomic, but that can also be a driver of value. Where, like, if I find something that people like I think that will, like, that should be, and so as a result, I think each module should have its own pool. And you might, it's not going to be just on the module level. It's like you're going to have like an address that will have its own pool, and you can associate that address to, like, if you stake to me, it locks it like all the stake is represented in this like address.
Are you kind of talking almost like an ETF kind of thing, where if everyone stakes this address, it dynamically gets allocated the fee
So
emissions
okay,
to
so I
modules? Is
stake
that what you're
to
talking about?
you. So I stake to you,
Uh-huh.
and you have a key that represents your validator, and
Uh-huh.
so you can basically every time I stake, every like time you get rewards, I get it's like it's printed in like the data token, and it's also, and if I, and let's say if you have this parameter that I'm going to add, it's going to be called, like, I don't know, I don't know what to call it, but it's going to be called coin incent. I don't know. It's basically this. It's a zero to 100 value that basically, like, it decides the percent of your emissions that go into the token pool, which is default your address, like like, and you can point it to a different token, but basically you're directing your emissions. If you direct your emissions into this token pool, which is into, like, let's say any token you want, really, it's any address on that, it's any token address. So if I'm like, I want to point it to this address, this token, it's basically going to print like a ratio of, like, each token's gonna have its own rate, like inflation. So it's gonna actually print like, one token or like two tokens per native token in that pool. So it could be 1 to 1, 2 to 1, 4 to 1, but it's basically minting a separate token while locking it with that native token. And so you can obviously withdraw it. That doesn't lock it. It just puts it in that pool. So if you withdraw like all of your tokens, you're essentially burning the tokens. Like, you're essentially swapping them in the pool. And so the price is based on the ratio of like, both the pools. So it's like, it's quite easy to calculate. And because it's one chain, you can swap between any token on any chain. So it's literally like, so I call these like tokens, but it's like you can think of them more as module tokens, or tokens more precisely. But basically, each key, like, address has the ability to be a token itself. Does that make sense?
Kind of. It's just I'm seeing that this is going to add a lot of complexity,
It's not. Trust me, it's not going to add that much
and I'm
complexity.
worried this is going to hinder the accessibility to the
It's
to the
not.
community at large.
It might.
No?
I don't think it will, but we have to be careful in it being that way. But I don't think it's going to hinder the community. I think it's going to incentivize people, because this basically means that so if you create a token on chain, like, so when let's say I want to create a token, so we'll have the rules where if you're registered on the network, you can create a token, and we'll limit it to the top 10,000 tokens, in terms of liquidity, stay on the network. If you are the bottom 10,000, and someone comes on, and if they have more liquidity, they replace you. So that's basically how it works. And so, but anyways, like, let's say right now, like, we have like less than 56 subnets. You can have a subnet token for each subnet. You can have a token for each module, and you can basically create different, like, anyone can create a token. Like, you can literally create an ERC20 with your commune address. That's the goal. We want you to create something that represents you, so that people can fund you and invest into you.
On other platforms, so it's more connected.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So each commune key is essentially a piece of entropy. It's a piece of noise that is very, very hard to guess, at least with the current technology. And so I can represent that noise and entropy on other chains as their own keys. And so that's what Com Wallet, the project Com Wallet, or the multi-chain commune wallet, that's what that is for. That kind of experience, like, that's the point of that, is to have an in-browser commune, like, multi-chain address, like, wallet, essentially. And we also, unfortunately, did it. Another person was also working on that, more so a web app and not so much the browser, because they could I think they're slightly different, but also directed to be multi-chain, so that you have a Bitcoin, you can basically use Bitcoin, Solana, Ethereum, Polkadot, and Commune, and BitTensor. Like, that was the whole goal, to make a very universal wallet.
Okay, so that is cool. I do like that idea, having the universal wallet. That makes sense. So, but I do want to pull back a little bit. I'm hoping to get more clarity out of it. Like, the meeting is intended to bring more clarity, and I feel like I kind of have more questions than answers than when we started. But at least we have that vision statement, which does help, and a couple explanations there of some big things that are coming. I do want to give Hansa a chance to explain some of the things that they're working on, because they have that Yuma consensus coming on and the testnet. And I definitely like to get a level set, knowing what they're working on and how things are going. Hansa, if you don't mind, I'd love to hear from you as well, and what your team was doing. And I know that you guys are doing some great work too.
Sure. So, hi guys. Hope everyone is doing well. I would first like to touch on the idea that Sal has mentioned about the Uniswap protocol and overall the other ideas. We will be introducing before the Yuma consensus update some basically change in the middle to make commune more decentralized. I'll publish it to this channel, to the chat that's attached to the call here. It's a proposal mechanism where, if you have an idea, like Sal has with the Uniswap protocol, or we have with Yuma consensus update and the incentives, you will have to essentially pass an proposal. So how it works, if you can you please share the image that I shared, so everyone can see it on your screen?
Let me work on that. I'm gonna do that right now. It's just I don't want to share my whole disk.
Okay.
I'm trying to figure out how to do this. Let me do it and then I'll open it.
Mm-hmm.
But I am working on it. Sorry. It just
Okay. So So this is a sample of how it will look like. We should introduce it to the main web page today or tomorrow. On the blockchain level, everything is ready. I would like to talk more about how the proposals work. So there are 3 types of proposals. Actually, there are 2 types of proposals on the high level. There's a global proposal, which changes the overall network, and there's a subnet proposal, which would change the subnet. Now, the more relevant one is the global proposal. Yes, so this is an example of some sample data. So you can pass 3 types of proposals. You can pass custom proposal, which is basically arbitrary text. So something that you can see here, which will describe your update that you want to make, or some feature that you, for example, don't like, or you would like to see changed, or you would like to change the emission schedule, or pretty much anything on the protocol level that can be expressed like in text. Then you will have to reach, the proposal will have to reach in a certain expiration period, which is 3 days, majority of the network stake, like as participation. So majority of the network stake will have to participate on the proposal. So let's say that the current market cap is, or like the circulating supply would be 100 million. Then we have 50 million staked, so 25 million of tokens would have to actively participate on the proposal. Right now it might be something around like 40 million tokens if you want to get proposal passed or refused. Has to participate, has to actively vote on the proposal. The proposal has fixed cost to prevent spammers, but if your proposal passes, you get your tokens back. So this aims to further decentralize the chain. So the whole community has to agree on everything. It's not a single entity. There are more things to this. There is, as I said, the custom proposal, which is text. But there's also a proposal to change the global parameters, which is, for example, something related to the weights or the unit emissions that are emitted every block, which the blockchain automatically executes if the proposal passed. And then there are subnet proposals, which are basically the same as the global ones, but just for subnet. So it would change the parameters on a specific subnet. For example, how many miners you can have on the subnet, or similar things regarding that subnet. So this will be published on the main page probably tomorrow. We will publish the UMA consensus proposal, and everyone will be free to connect their wallet and vote on the proposal. So assuming we reach 50% of the stake on the network, and majority of the stake that was participating on the proposal agrees, then the runtime update will be executed, and we will do some major shifts of the incentives, which has been discussed in the PDF that was in the announcement that's currently running on the testnet, which basically aims to improve subnets in autonomous validation, improve mining rewards of honest validators, aims to decrease self-voting, and aims to make the subnet zero easier for manual validation, I would say, or like validation of legitimate projects while keeping the linearity and it being straightforward. So this is a very important thing that I had to add. So yes, we will every update and every major change on the blockchain will have to pass through a proposal from from now on, basically. So yeah.
That's a fantastic update. That's really interesting. And it's so with these proposals, and I apologize if you already mentioned this. This proposal system, does this system go in place with at the same time as that Yuma update?
No. So the way it will work is okay. Sorry, I was reading some question. So the way it will work is that we introduce these proposals. It will be public on the main website or the commune-ai.org. And we'll publish there the Yuma consensus incentive update. And assuming we get the 50% of necessary stake, and the stake approves it, then we'll execute the update. And we're hoping we'll get the stake. Many community members agreed on this, and we believe that many members will actively participate. So we're quite confident in getting the update approved, but this will be the workflow.
So, and another piece is, do they have to unstake to vote, or do they just like vote with their number of?
No, it's very straightforward. For the user, if the user has stake on any subnet, it's not restricted to subnet, but it's restricted to stake. If user has stake on any subnet, they can vote for the proposal, and the proposal will get all of their stake. So the proposal, because of there are a few ways to do this on the logical landscape, which would be to create a snapshot where every proposal is created. This is how majority of EVMs, or like chains running on Ethereum, do it. They create a snapshot, so they prevent the keys moving the balances and then like manipulating the proposal, like double spending. But how we do it is that we save the addresses of the keys that are for and against the proposal. And every 100 blocks, the blockchain queries the stake of these accounts, so the all stake tokens across all subnets, and it sees the stake. And once the stake reaches 50% of the network, the proposal will be executed. And it depends if majority of stake was for or against the proposal. So that's the way it works. Basically, to participate in the voting, what you have to do is to be staked in any validator on any subnet or any module. So you can just go to Comstats or Comwallet and stake your balance. And then once the update is ready on the official page, and you can just connect.
That's honestly incredible. I'm kind of blown away. Yeah, this is fantastic. That's super cool. It would be nice to be able to. I'm assuming this obviously will be open source and we'll be able to see it, because what would be cool is then take this same concept and then bring it down to subnets. Each subnet would be have to do it themselves, but the shift should be. We've already done the foundation, so this is fantastic.
Yeah, this is a fairly it's a solid pattern for how most DAOs operate. I'm curious, was there a framework that you guys used? I've used Aragon before to try and implement stuff like this, but it's a little complex.
It's Substrate native, so we implemented the logic ourselves on Substrate. We'll do a tag on the release, so it's open source. Anyone can read the code and see if they can exploit it.
Yeah. We'll find out quick, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's secure.
I'm on it.
So we've hit that 1 hour mark. I try not to soak up too much time in these kinds of meetings, but that was fantastic. I think we covered a lot of really good topics. There'll definitely have to be some follow-up to get things going. I'm going to try to add more to the roadmap later. There's some other topics I wanted to cover, but I think we covered a lot of ground today. I'm really excited to see more about the Yuma and the Uniswap come out and more documentation on all of it. Looks fantastic, and I'm very interested. And the Uniswap thing with the multiple tokens idea is interesting, and I'm curious to see how that matures as we get closer to that becoming a reality as well. That, like Pham said, that black paper coming out. I think there's more conversations to be had about documentation and what website does what and how to link them and how would we make the end user experience on the non-dev side as well as the dev side be able to use a commune effectively. But I think we are moving in that direction, having the conversations we need, and I think this is a great step forward. So I did want to thank everyone who joined. This was a productive meeting, and I thank you so much for all of the participants. I think with that, I want to close, but is there any last parting words from Pham, Hansa, Baco, any of the other key stakeholders?
This is really dope. It's really exciting. It's hard to keep track when everything's going in parallel, but yeah, like
You should put up a
I'm really
bounty for
excited.
personal assistance, man.
Yeah. Well, well, ironically, we're an AI. We should have that already. But like, yeah, no, like, I think this is really good. Like, this is pushing us to really high decentralization. And like, I think it's important when creating these voting systems is how do we engage the stakers to vote, because maybe some might not vote. But I guess that's also a good mechanism because major changes like a global parameter update probably requires enough engagement, like 50% to justify its
Yeah,
change.
in running those protocols before, like, yeah, and having ran a couple of like experimental DAOs, the biggest problem in a DAO is getting the level of participation from all of the stakeholders that you want, because oftentimes if someone is putting up a proposal, it could presumably benefit them, so they will vote, but nobody else will really care because it doesn't really affect them. So it's an interesting problem to solve.
Yeah, so
but I've tried to solve it a couple of times and think I have some decent approaches.
Some kind of
we
reward.
could have a validator. Yeah, we could have a validator that just votes for the keys that vote. Or that,
Yeah,
or
delegation is great. And then there's some fun little AI patterns too that I could nerd out about for God knows how long, but I will restrain myself and say that
Yes.
generally delegation is the way. Yes.
Thank you, Yikes. And that was a good idea, Pham, like a validator that rewards people for participating in a vote. That makes a lot of sense to me. But yeah, there's probably a million ways to solve this problem. It's just coming up with the way that this group wants to do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I'm very excited. I think we have a lot of good things coming. I'm looking forward to getting better visibility for the entire community so we know what to look forward to. And as we mature, it's going to get better and better. So looking forward to it. So thanks everyone for joining. But with that, I'm going to close this one because I don't want it to go for too terribly long. But that was fantastic. Thanks everybody.
Awesome.
GG, well played, friends. I'll catch you later.
Catch you later, guys. Yeah.